Good evening. Tonight I'd like to talk about the existence of the mind and the non-existence of God. Now in science it is generally believed by many scientists that the mind is simply a extension of the brain, or a product or a function of the brain, and that there's nothing outside of the physical. And I think this says something about the bias of certain scientists and of the scientific tradition in general, that it has always focused on the physical. And with good reason. I mean, for the most part, our understanding of the mental, especially in the West, has been very supernatural. It's been associated with a creator God, with a soul, and so on. In fact, even in India, there is the belief in a soul, in a self, an Atman, and in Brahma, and so on. And so it's generally been discarded that anything outside of the physical, because it can't be experimented on, it is outside of the realm of science, outside of the realm of reality. It is something to be always regarded with suspicion. But suppose that there was something that existed outside of the physical, but could be experimented on, was empirically realizable, empirically verifiable, and had nothing to do with the supernatural, was completely and perfectly subject to natural laws of its own kind, which would of course be somewhat different, though related to the physical laws. And I submit that, well, God and the soul and all of these supernatural entities that are generally referred to in religious traditions are not empirically realizable, are not subject to experiment and so on, that there is something which, though not being physical, is subject to experiment and is empirically verifiable, and that is the mind. And how we do this, of course, is through the practice of meditation. At the time when we're practicing meditation, you'd have to be intentionally blind, which I think most of us in the West are, to deny the existence of something which was so clearly evident and so clearly not physical. That at the time when you close your eyes, it's so obvious that there is something watching. For instance, when you're watching the breath, when you watch the breath go in and out, it's clear, and it's something that you can do an experiment on. You close your eyes and you're aware, there is an awareness, whether it's you or not, is a subjective sort of thing. But at any rate, there is something that knows. And that which knows, well, we call it the mind, whatever you want to call it, there is something that is aware. Now, scientists, of course, say, well, like everything else, this is simply a product of the hallucinations or the delusions that arise from having an imperfect brain and so on. And in the end, it's all simply a physical, natural process. I agree that it's natural, I don't agree that it's physical. And to put this in perspective, I want to make it understood that I give no more credit to the scientific view of materialism than I do to, say, a Hindu view of mind only, or the existence of the mind only. And the existence of mind only works in this way, and it might be easy to see a parallel here. The Hindu or many of the Indian traditions, some Buddhists as well, will say that there is only the mind. Everything that is physical is merely a product of mental delusion or mental imagination. It's a dream. Everything that we see around us, just like in the movie The Matrix, is simply a product of mental hallucination or imagination. In reality, there's only the mind. When we feel something hard, it's actually our mind projecting out and creating this sense of hard. When we feel heat, when we feel pressure, or so on, this is only something that's happening in the mind. And I don't think that there's any reason to believe one hypothesis over the other, one theory over the other. All of the physical experiments that are done in science could easily and very, very quickly be discarded if we accept a belief in mind only. We could say that the physical is only something that arises based on the mind. I don't believe that, and I don't believe the materialist view that there is no mind. How I approach this is in this way. The belief in only the physical and the belief in only the mental, either one of them has to discard the other. You have to have some explanation as to why that which appears to exist does not exist. If you choose the materialist side, you have to have an explanation of why what appears to be a very empirical reality, that of the mind, why doesn't it exist? Why is it that we think it exists, or we experience it to exist, and it actually doesn't? And of course, scientists have all of this. They have their explanations. On the other side, the mind-only people, they have their own explanations, but they are required to provide those explanations as to why the physical, what appears to be physical, why is it that, in what way can you say that it doesn't exist? And of course, existence here is a tricky thing. How can you say that this exists and this does not exist? You avoid both of these extremes, both of these dilemmas, and you clearly have the advantage by having a simpler explanation when you accept the existence of both. We accept the existence of the physical because we can feel it, we can see it, we can hear it, we can smell it, we can taste it, we can run all sorts of experiments on it, which are clearly one realm of reality, and that is the physical realm. We can do the same with the mind, and this is unknown to most scientists, I understand, but it is very well known to the Eastern quote-unquote religious or spiritual traditions, which in the end can be very scientific. Early Buddhism was incredibly scientific and has the mind reduced, it's a reductionist view of the mind, reduced into various building blocks, just as the physical world is. So that every experience is considered to be a building block of what we then call the mind. And it is something which clearly exists, which can be experimented on, which can be verified, and it has a whole magisterium of its own. So in a sense, these are two magisterium, two mutually exclusive realms of dominance, that the mind has its own realm and the body has its own realm. Now it's clear that they work together. It's clear, in fact, that they're probably part of a whole, which we would then call a being or so on. But of course that whole is only the sum of its parts. This is an explanation of why I would say it's most rational to believe in both the mind and the body. I don't think there's any reason for us to have to do mental somersaults to try to explain away one or the other side.